everyone. Glad you could join us tonight. We have a very special guest tonight, Alex Nye. He's the CEO and founder of Divergence Neuro. And just a quick snapshot here. Alex Nye is the CEO of Divergence Neuro, a neurotechnology company focused on expanding access to remote neurofeedback and biofeedback solutions for clinicians and individuals worldwide. He is a seasoned technology leader with a deep passion for mental health and neuroscience. And I'll read the rest of this as we come up, but you're gonna really enjoy tonight. We'll just do a little housekeeping. As been mentioned before, we have the Palm Ultimate. The device is a $1,300 device that we give away once a month. And after you tune in, every time you tune in, you get a ballot. You need to stay for most of the program. This is a $1,300 device, very powerful, and it works. It has the red and near infrared, and so every time you tune in, and if you watch through the whole program live, then we give this away once a month. Every time you tune in, you get a ballot, and then at the end of we do a random draw, and somebody wins this device. So right now, I'll just show you, see the power? It's going right through my hand here. You can see it there, going right through my hand. And then this is the near infrared. Now, the near infrared doesn't look doesn't look like much, but in actual fact, it's quite powerful. It's just that our eyes can't perceive it. You can't see it with your naked eye. But that wavelength can actually penetrate much deeper. So that's our device. And what we're going to do right now is roll into the video, a short video of just telling you about some of our technology, and then we're going to get right into it with Alex and I and have some fun together. So I think we're going to be what we're going to be doing tonight is we're actually going to do some live demonstrations with this device and see how it goes. So and we can see the brain waves in real time, and that's what Alex has been able to develop, a really cool app on the phone that allows you to connect to a device like this that has these little probes that touch your head, and that picks up the brain waves at different locations in your brain, and that works extremely well. So we'll be able to see how he can see the brain waves, and we're going to try me first under this device and see how it goes. So here we go. 15 years back, I realized that light could make a huge difference on the body. I ended up designing this very powerful light using LED technology. With this amount of very high power density, it can reach through the tissues and travel right to the joints. But the key is that the power density and the area is extremely important to deliver that light into that. The mitochondria receives that light and converts that energy into the cell. So it's like giving the cell super high octane fuel, and they run like a jet, and they're able to do all the things for repair in that. What are the products we have? Well, we have a small device, which is actually large when it comes to light therapy. You have a fairly large area of light and a high power density that can be used for different parts of the body, like your fingers, shoulder, back, neck, knees, ankle, anywhere on the body. And then we have what's called the mini canopy, which is about a foot square in size. And then we have our full-size canopy, which is basically 6 of the mini canopies. And then we have another device, which is the helmet, and that device can help for mental issues, for brain injuries, for concussions, for PTSD, TBI, all of those kinds of things. And there's new research out there that shows it could be helpful for not only strokes, but dementia, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's, and just different brain issues. Our plans are to move this technology into every area of the world, where there's pain and inflammation, which is basically everywhere, and to expand that so people understand all the applications where this technology can be used to help them in their health in the body as a wellness device. People are looking for how they can treat themselves without drugs. All right, so I think tonight is going to be pretty exciting. I'm glad we have a really good group of people on tonight that are watching, and I think there's definitely some people in this group that are doctors, that are researchers, that are those who have contributed to the growth of PBM, photobiomodulation, and especially doing research studies. And yeah, and then there's I believe that probably Rebecca's on tonight, and probably Rebecca, who we had last week. Margaret Naser, fantastic person who has done all sorts of work on the brain and really laid some really good groundwork. Also, Anita Saltmarsh is another one out there. Anyways, we got some really, really neat people that have spent a lot of time in their work to grow this whole technology and the effects of this technology. And I'm just very, very thankful because I come along and then all of a sudden get the benefit from all their hard work. So, all right. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to get Alex online with his video. And I just want to now that all the people have tuned in, we have Alex Nye on tonight as the guest. He's CEO and founder of Divergence Neuro. Divergence Neuro is a neurotechnology company focused on expanding access to remote neurofeedback and biofeedback solutions for clinicians and individuals worldwide. He is a seasoned technology leader with a deep passion for mental health and neuroscience. There he is. Hey, Alex.
Hey, folks.
Great to have you on here. I'll just read a little bit more about your bio. Alex holds an MBA with a focus on technology management and valuation, and also has a CPA CMA designation. Under his leadership, Divergence Neuro has grown into a global platform advancing connected biometric insights and cutting-edge remote therapeutic tools that aim to improve wellness, mental wellness, and human performance. Tonight, we're going to even have a live demo, a few live demos if it works out. So, Alex, thank you for coming on tonight. This is fantastic. I'm honored to have you on. So, tell me a little bit that I didn't say here in our bio here.
Sure. I think you covered it all, Tom, and it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. It's great to show off a little bit the evidence. We all know how powerful your creation that gives us light, and this light, stimulates the brain, helps with so many things. But I think for many folks, perhaps tonight will be the first time you actually get to see what the light is doing in sort of the neural network level, and on a brainwave level, what that's actually doing to the brain. How do we correlate some of those observations and measurements into what we felt, what we've always known to be true? As I like to say, there's evidence behind everything. We can feel feelings, we can feel things happen, but with evidence, everything's that much more clear. So I'm really happy to be here. I have been doing EEG related work for on and off about 8 years. Divergence is, as you introduced, a neurotechnology company that's founded in 2020. So in the pits of the pandemic, our mission is to bring the best and most user-friendly neurotechnology to everybody in terms of using mobile wireless technology to help people understand how their brain works and how their brain changes with different kind of therapeutic interventions, such as photobiomodulation. And before that, I've had a 3-year stint studying epilepsy and seizure, which is where I
Wow.
got the bug for EEG and biotech and neurotech. So that's a bit about me. My background is a computer engineer, mostly focusing on software side. I've learned more than I need to know about hardware, but yeah, really, really, really happy to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So my hopes tonight is that we'll be able to do some demonstrations, and hopefully everything works really smooth. I think it will, and we'll give it our best, and people will be able to see how this works. And then Alex, if you can then show some slides of what's happening now. I will be skewing this just a bit because my hair is kind of funny here, and the reason being is I decided to have a short cat nap so that I'd be fresh. I've had a full day, and so I knocked off for 10 minutes, but that usually under the light, by the way, for my back, my lower back, and that. But I do it at the large canopy, so it does my whole back and my neck and a little bit of my head. So I hope I don't skew the readings too much here that I've had some light treatment already, but the other two individuals, Sam here and Saad, who you've done a measurement with, they will be different than probably my brain. So somehow I'm wired unique. So, anyways, I'll put this on. I'll show people, and while I'm trying to do this, um, maybe you could explain a little bit more about your technology, how it works, and what it allows you to do. And one thing I'm super excited about is you're in Toronto. I'm 60 miles away, or maybe 50 miles, but basically, we are at a distance. So you could be in California and I'm here. And what's going to happen is Alex can see it in real time. Anybody could see this that's seasoned, that knows what they're looking at, could look at this, right, Alex? And examine the waveform. So we could have one super specialist, Alex Nye, in Toronto, and he could look at anybody around the world and be able to look at his brain function, right?
That's correct. Yes, you got it. So, I think some of you might know what brainwaves are. Just for general purposes, it is electroencephalography, which is the big nerdy way of saying brainwaves. Now, everyone who is tuned in and alive have some kind of electrical pulses that are coming from their brain. So these things are constantly shifting and changing. We've developed sensors from early part of last century to measure how these electrical waves change direction and how strong or weak they are at different parts of the brain, how fast or slow they are. And in turn, these information nuggets tell us a lot about how the brain's working and what states it's in. So for much of our medical history, these technologies stayed in the labs or clinics or hospitals with very expensive, very ginormous machines that have to be tethered, plugged into the wall, and you have to have tons of wires coming into your head and gel and goop. So in the last while, the mobile technology has been developing quite drastically. So now we can have the same power of a neural monitoring unit in a hospital, something that's fully mobile, that you can measure your brain activity from just about anywhere. So you can see Tom's wearing a 4-channel device that works quite well with the divergence platform that's called a synchrony pento. So it has 4 channels of EEG and also 1 channel of EKG, which is not utilizing, but that's okay. So when Tom turns on a measurement protocol from his smartphone, the information gets streamed to a secure cloud that we manage that we can look at Tom's brain data from anywhere in the world. So this is first of its kind, fully functional clinical neurophysiology system, and we can also monitor other information such as electrical cardiogram, or ECG or EKG for some. All the biometrics can be streamed in real time into a secure cloud so that Tom's service provider or research partner, which is me in this case, can capture that data and do very interesting in-depth analysis to it, either in real time or post-event. So that's only part of the story. So Divergence really is a software provider for neuro assessment, but also neurofeedback. Neurofeedback is an intervention just like photobiomodulation that uses physiological data, which in this case is your brainwave, to help individuals modulate and change their brain patterns, change their neural network patterns by using operating conditioning sort of principles in order to reward the individual when their brain's producing desirable signal patterns, right? So this is kind of a very old psychological phenomenon where we train towards what's desirable, whether that is reducing anxiety or improving focus or something else. The real-time feedback in form of pleasant videos or audios or sounds or music can entrain the brain into producing more desirable frequency patterns. And when this happens for long enough, the brain learns how to rewire itself towards those desirable states. And that's the other part of what we do at Divergence. But we're going to see the measurement part first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for those that, by the way, you need to go on if you want to see both of us at the same time, people out there will have to use gallery view so they can see both of us. I think that's what has to happen. So what I've done for those that are looking, I've just put this cap on. And by the way, this one fits me better, Alex. Anyways,
Fantastic.
there's two probes up here, one in the center, and then one at the back of my neck, right there, kind of on one of those sides. And they're spring-loaded contacts, so they're working their way through. That's why I got to wiggle them sometimes to make sure that they're coming through. But I got to turn on my app now. And there's two ear clips on here. This is our grounding or our reference point on each ear, and that gives you kind of your baseline for electronics so that the electronic probes can pick up at the right point. So now I'm going to get the app going and hopefully, so this is an app that you were involved in and it's really neat. So I'm going to unpause the app and here it comes. I turned it on up here. There's a little microprocessor up here that's able to monitor the four channels and then transmit it by Bluetooth back to my phone. And then from my phone, it's going into the internet and Alex is going to be able to see it. So now I'm going to select this is a program that Alex has written, an app, and I go into that. And now how many different types of devices have you got now that your app runs on?
We support at this point, I believe, 9 different kind of devices, and we're constantly adding new devices to our platform that are compatible.
Right. Okay. And it's coming up here. And I failed to mention, I've got another probe right here. Is that a good location? Am I okay?
That's a great location, Tom. That's your ECG channel. Yeah,
Okay, you want it on this side because your heart's on that side?
that's correct.
Okay, I got something right. But the app also tells you where to put it. So I can't be too bad on that side of things. Okay, so just loading up here. And now it's saying put the probes in the right location. So that's his app telling you every step of the way what to do. So even somebody that doesn't know anything about this can actually run one of these things. Okay, and Alex has a video on here to tell you how to do things. And since I put them all on there, I now see it has a picture here that shows your human body and where to place this device. And I guess it shows a little higher than this, but is that okay?
That is A-okay, Tom. You got it.
Okay, next. All right. Now what it's doing is the probes are coming up. Okay. All right. And there's one probe on the front of my head on this side that's not quite picking up right yet.
So you can see as Tom's doing this, we're seeing his brainwave in these 4 channels live on my screen here. So if you tune into my screen, and then you can see the real-time impedance, which is another way of saying contact quality between the electrode and his scalp. So as these kind of improve, you can move into the next phase and start collecting data. This is because we want to make sure we collect good data, not just noise. So when that button turns green on the app, Tom, you can click next or just advance into the recording anytime.
Okay.
Very good. So now we're collecting a few pieces of information. As you'll see on my screen, we're collecting the ECG, which is electrocardiograph, and we're also collecting EEG, which is electroencephalography. So we're measuring both the brain and the heart at the same time. So what we're doing is we're creating what's called a baseline of Tom's brain resting state. So this is just kicking back, not doing much, not exerting any kind of cognitive effort. So you see that these things will come in a few seconds. We compute brainwaves in several different frequency spectrums, from very slow ones like theta to medium ones like alpha, and then low beta to mid beta, ultimately high beta and gamma. So these frequencies are associated to different states of the brain. Delta is really the slowest. We're not measuring that here. That's associated typically to sleep, right? So when you're sleeping, your brain's filled with really slow waves between 1 to 4 hertz. And when you just wake up, or when you're mind wandering or deep in some creative process, your brain exhibits mostly theta, which is 4 to 8 hertz. And then when you're selectively blocking tasks or input, or you're kind of just turning your attention to inward focus, or closing your eyes, your brain produces more alpha. And then when you're starting to exhibiting some level of focus, mostly kind of getting ready, your brain moves towards the low to medium beta ranges. So these are kind of the amplitudes that we're kind of looking at here exhibiting. And this is where the faster waves, this is how the waves are distributed from 1 hertz all the way to 30. So you can see that Tom's brain is kind of really fast. It's sort of moving, centering around 12.5 hertz, just kind of got peak alpha score. So there's a lot of alpha going on. As he closes his eyes, you can see that alpha, which is the light blue, start taking over theta there. So that was 1 minute baseline, Tom. So did you want to turn the light on next, or have
Yeah,
somebody turn the
okay.
light on? Yeah.
They'll roll the light around here and put it
Yeah.
on bring it
Yeah.
close to my head.
Yeah. Yeah. So what we've just done is we've created this 2-minute baseline of Tom's brain just in its natural resting state. Now we're going to start turning on a photobiomodulation, and we'll see what happens to the brainwave and the heart rate, right? So you can, as a review, we can go over what happened in the last 2 minutes. This is Tom's natural baseline. You can start seeing the alpha take over theta. Just keep in mind, we'll do some comparison between these two states in a little bit, but for now, just kind of look at what's going on here.
Okay, there we go. Okay, that's good. Yeah. Okay.
So that's his raw brainwave. You see, it's pretty decent.
Yeah. And we gotta just get it steady here. Just 1 sec.
So what we're gonna do is the same measurement next with the light on.
And we'll do the 10 nanometer. We just turned on the light.
Great. Feel free to start.
It started. I'm
Wonderful.
using 810 nanometer right now, and 810 nanometer does not show up very well in the camera. Doesn't show much.
You can see right off the bat how much more data is coming out of Tom's brain here. There's 2.88, that's a microvolt. It's just an indication of amplitude, right? So when we look at waves, just a little bit of background. So you've got two properties of every wave. You've got how high the waves are, which is amplitude. You got small waves, big waves, and then you've got how fast or slow the wave ripples. That's frequency, right? So think of a water wave when you're surfing, and it's the same thing. When you look at electrical activities, we look at both these properties in order to understand where our brain is hanging out at, right? So clearly you can see in this distribution, there's a massive amplitude coming out of the high theta range is 6.7 here, and then again 5.7. So this is all between 4 to 7 hertz. Now, the very important thing that we have to understand about theta is it's a frequency range that's associated often with rest and recovery, such as when you just wake up, your brain is just recharging its battery, and it's sort of like recruiting energy to do all sorts of things that you're going to throw at it for the rest of the day, right? So it is sort of the magical frequency between very low, which is 1 to 4 hertz, and the higher ones, which are like 8 and above. So when your brain spends time in this frequency, typically what you would observe are phenomena like mind wandering or rest and relaxation. Just you're not really kind of hyper focusing on anything or driving your brain hard, but what it's doing is it's actually replenishing your gas tank. So when you're starting to focus, you're starting to see more upper frequency movements towards low beta or mid beta. And when you're really stressed out, there's going to be a lot of high beta in this sort of spectrum here. So you can see how much theta Tom's brain is producing right now. And let's look at the heart. I want to talk about the heart for a second. So, RMSSD, root mean square standard deviation, this is a way that we compute something called HRV, or heart rate variability. Some of you might already be aware. Heart rate variability is a measurement of how adaptive our cardiovascular system is. So typically, the higher the heart rate variability, the more we're ready to adapt. Now, when you look at the heart rate variability frequencies, you can see that the very low frequency is dominating right now. Very low frequency is also often associated as long-term rest and repair frequency. So this is very much in the parasympathetic side of things, followed by the low frequency, which is something we call a baroflex frequency, which is sort of the ready to shift frequency, and then the high frequency, which is really more the sympathetic. So you can see that they're crossing over right now. So we'll compare and contrast what Tom's heart and cardiovascular system's doing together with what his brain is doing, and see what we observe there, right? So that's the process. So why do we look at the heart? The brain and the heart are often very closely correlated. So through the sort of vagal nerve system, some of you may have heard of the polyvagal theory by Stephen Porges, where it postulates heart and the brain co-regulates with one another through sort of the vagal nerve systems, right? So when you have something that is a stress factor or an external change that affects the heart, and the heart signals the brain to produce more norepinephrine, and upregulates the brain, and vice versa. When that signal or threat goes away, the heart signals that it's okay to downregulate. So there's a lot of different physiology happening here. When we look at more in-depth analysis of the heart rate and its derivative metrics, you can see that Tom's gone into what we call the baroflex stage. He's low frequency is actually dominating right now, and then the high frequency and very low frequency are dwarfed here. So that means he's really kind of charged up and ready to go sort of state. His cardiovascular system is primed for embracing any kind of change or spring into action. So the LF is sort of the magical frequency here, where we're looking at, typically in physiology, we're looking at optimizing the LF frequency to get the cardiovascular system to be ready for any kind of change, right? So you can see that's happening here, which is really, really cool. And look at what the brain is doing here too. we're still maintaining perfect rest and recovery. So theta is maxed, and you can see the multiple theta humps here. So what we're gonna do is after this is over, we're gonna compare and contrast this one with the baseline and see what we observe that are different. This is all real live data, so nothing is pre-canned or pre-manufactured. You can be sure that everything you're seeing here is 100% real. It's real time. It's coming from Tom's head. So we should be almost there.
Oh no. It just said lost connection to synchronous pencil.
Oh,
Check.
okay, that's okay. We got enough data. That's okay.
Okay.
We can just back it. I think we got
Okay.
enough data. Sometimes it loses Bluetooth in the capsule environment, but rest assured we got enough data. So
Okay. I
what I
can
wanted
plug that
to
in. I can plug that in, Alex, right now, and we can
That's
finish.
okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. I think one is good. Just for the sake of time, I will look at what we've done in terms of comparison and contrast, and then we'll go into sort of the slide deck so that we can kind of move towards the juicy part here, if that's okay.
All right. Okay.
Okay. So when you look at the baseline, this is called a fast Fourier transform. It's basically taking the amplitude in time domain and translate that into frequency domain. So what this shows you is where the prominent frequency is in terms of where most of the energy is centered around Tom's brain. So as you can see, it's mostly around alpha here at 10.9 hertz peak, right? So you can see the average here is about 10 or so, and just keep that in mind. And again, in terms of energy dispersion, he's got mostly sort of alpha being very close to theta, still very theta dominant, but remember this number here, 1.3, that's the highest microvolts, right? And we'll skip some of these ones. In terms of HRV, I just want you to look at some of the HRV. So you can see his low frequency and very low frequency change hands quite a few times. So this is quite typical when a person's in natural resting state. Some of it is baroflex, is just being ready to go, followed by some long-term rest and repair, and then baroflex comes up again and rest and repair. So this is with no additional input into the brain, of course. So we're going to look at the next piece. I'm going to refresh this. Could you just click finish of that protocol, Tom, or just terminate the protocol?
Oh, just terminate?
Just hit back. Yeah.
Okay. Or can I pause the app?
You can just swipe right. Yeah. So it's disconnected. So it's basically
Oh,
got all
go.
the stuff that it needs
There
to
you go.
do.
Okay, go home,
There
it
you
said. Okay.
go. Okay, that's perfect. So I got the data. That's what's important here. Okay, so you can see in the active portion, we've got a clear theta dominance here by a long shot. So theta is nowhere near alpha, low beta, or mid beta, right? So remember that 1.3A. So what does that read now? That's close to 3. So there's a whole lot more energy around the theta spectrum. So when you look at this chart here, there's multiple humps here that indicates clear energy absorption by the brain.
So
So
this is
when you
when,
look at
sorry, this, Alex, this is when I've got the light on.
that's when you have the light on. That's correct.
Right.
So this is your active phase. Sorry, I should explain that more clearly. So this is the active phase. Compare the baseline, which is prior. Your energy disperses around multiple kind of humps around the theta spectrum, starting with, say around 4 hertz, and then there's another one at 5.7, there's another one at 6.7, and another one at 7.8. And then you still have your alpha hump at around 11, so that didn't really change. But overall, I want you to notice how much energy is accumulated here. Compared to the first curve, you see how flat that is versus how peaky this is, right? So all that additional energy sort of centered around the lower frequency is an indication of the brain going to rest and repair and starting with a lot more energy coming into it, right? So again, when you look at the theta alpha balance, your theta clearly exceeds alpha by a long shot. It's nowhere close. And your theta is now at around, 2.8 at its peak, close to 3 versus 1.38, which is more than twice increase, right? So this overall energy dispersion is clearly favoring sort of the lower frequency spectrum, which indicates your brain is going into this automatic rest and repair and recharging state with the PEM on. That's one of the things that we can probably conclude, because you're not moving around, you're not doing anything else. You kept your eyes closed. Everything else is pretty much held constant, and we know that there is no sort of EMR because you're not pausing the frequency. So there's no frequency component coming from the helmet. This is all just because your brain is absorbing additional energy, about 350 nanowatts, in fact.
Yeah, the helmet is in
right?
continuous wave. There's no pulsing that's going on to push it any which way. This way, the brain is going to its natural this state just by a continuous light source being placed that penetrates into the brain.
Correct. Yeah. So you can see in terms of HRV, it's very interesting. Your HRV started very much baroflex, and then your long-term rest and recovery start taking over the middle half and then went into baroflex again. This is pretty natural, but in overall, I think you have way more rest and recover in this phase than the previous phase, right? So that's interesting. And if we were to compare to raw HRV, it probably increased it because baroflex means your readiness is higher, in terms of physiology. So that's just a little snippet. Because of time, we can only do one. What I want to do next, if we're okay, is I wanted to kind of just unfold this a little bit, just so we can kind of get to some more interesting aspect of this. So I've pulled one of our records. It's actually from your brain as well, Tom. You've got a really good brain, so I kind of just over-index on that. You can see this is a picture of acid in your office. Being measured was an 8-channel device rather than a 4-channel device. So with an 8-channel device, we can see a bit more. Let's just go over some of the basic ground truth that we know. So the principle and mechanisms of biomodulation and photobiomodulation is something we call mitochondrial activation. So mitochondria is sort of this energy plant that produces something called ATP, adenine triphosphide, which is the fuel the cells use. You can see that here. One of the things that photobiomodulation works on is the ability for all cellular structure to absorb light. Light is a frequency, carries with it energy. Mitochondria reacts to light and absorbs its energy, especially near infrared, which is the spectrum we're talking about. In an electron transport chain stimulation that gets kicked off with increased nitrous oxide alongside of ATP. Helps the blood flow and helps the additional transport of electron. And also has something called redox signaling, in fact. So on a cellular level, it increases adenine triphosphide production. It increases nitrous oxide. And these things translate to reduced inflammation, speed up recovery time, and restoration of functions in terms of neurological functions, something called redox signaling. Enhances neurological functions by making the signals travel that much more smoother in your brain. So that's in a nutshell how photobiomodulation works on a fundamental mechanistic level, right? So let's look at the 8-channel measurement. So in this measurement, we, like the 4-channel you just saw, we took 8 channels that are evenly spread across both sides of Tom's brain from front to back, 4 channels on each side you can see. And we've taken, again, the baseline versus during photobiomodulation. And this one is done on a 1050 nanometer, which is a slightly longer wavelength, right? So you can see where the energy is dispersed, typically around the right frontal cortex. Tom may have been a little sleepier there, which we have a lot of delta and theta concentrated on the right frontal on a baseline because his eyes are closed, so he's tranquil. And there's some sort of alpha in the back because eyes closed. That's pretty typical. It's selective task inhibition under eyes closed, mostly hanging around the low alpha, 8 to 10 hertz, not so much the high alpha. So keep that in mind. And then on the front, we've got some sort of 20 to 30 hertz on the frontal right here. And then under photobiomodulation, you can see that delta gets moved in the back from the front where it belongs. And this is also eyes closed. So everything else is held constant. That's important to understand because the only thing that's different between the two states is when is with the light on. Okay, so you can see how the theta and delta has been redistributed from front to back. This is really fascinating because slow waves, the back is where most slow waves are supposed to belong to, right? The frontal slow waves are indication of fatigue, exhaustion, and slowed cognitive function, typically. So you can see where it really increases the alpha gets moved from front completely to the back. This is amazing. This reallocation, not just pure increase of energy, that actually the brain adapts to the light and it starts moving energy around to where it's mostly rest and recovery as a consequence of the cellular movement, the cellular reaction to the light. So you can see underneath here, what we have is something called brain connectivity. So these graphs indicate which sides your brain's mostly hyperconnected. So if one side moves, the other side moves along with it. So in this baseline, you can see Tom's brain is very hyperconnected on the delta frequency spectrum. So usually that's a sign of fatigue and sleep disruption. He was probably tired late in the afternoon. So not so much on theta, alpha, and beta. So these higher frequencies are hypoconnected, which means they're not quite moving together.
Yeah, it was a long day when we did that.
Indeed.
And I was tired. So yeah.
Yes, totally understandable. And now look what happens when the light comes on. So remember where we're usually hyperconnected in delta, and now it's moving to theta spectrum. So
and the theta spectrum, it's a little small for us to read. What's the frequency of the theta spectrum?
That is 4 to 8 hertz.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So this signals better information flow and lower sort of energetic cost per unit, where the theta spectrum really is indicative of rest and repair rather than just asleep, right? So this shows a denser, stronger long-range coupling. So you can see the front and the back is compared to before is much more strongly connected. So the entire network is going into sort of synchronized rest and repair. So this is really, really cool to see, in terms of not just the sheer amplitude, but also how it's distributed and how it's kind of presented in the brain in a phase lag kind of manner, right? Mm-hmm. Something else I want to call your attention to. This is really a magical slide as well. I really like this slide. What this is individual peak alpha. So this is before the light came on, it's just baseline. And again, this is under the PBM. You see how much faster his peak alpha has moved. So in this first graph, his peak alpha is mostly centered around 9 hertz, right? With power amplitude around 1. So take a look at this, right? So when we talk about peak alpha, we look at the amplitude or the power rather of the specific frequency, and we figure out the one that has the highest power, and then we call that the peak alpha. So in this case, his peak alpha at baseline was 10.2 hertz and centered around right frontal cortex at 4 here. Now look at what happens when a light comes on. Peak alpha increases by and large close to 2 hertz across the board. And look at the power increase. This is clear evidence that the brain is absorbing the power that's been input into it via photobiomodulation. This is a significant increase of peak alpha, both in power and in frequency. So peak alpha has to do with, a lot of cases, the speed at which our brain processes information, the speed our brain sort of wires, our neurons wire together. A higher peak alpha typically correlates to a slightly faster processing. Lower peak alpha compared to average could be indicative of cognitive decline and slower processing or some sort of traumatic brain injury in most cases. So you can see what happens when the light comes on, how much the peak alpha increased and the energetic level increased. So again, really cool to see. And last but not least, the power spectral density, which is really the Fourier transformed EEG, which basically gives you kind of an energy view rather than a sort of an amplitude time view, right? So when you look at the frequency, how much higher the power is on average, specifically around the lower frequency, you can see this elevation of power. Same brain, pretty much the same time spectrum, 2 minutes each, and one was light on, one without. And again, you can see that alpha theta switch here. So baseline alpha and theta are pretty much equal. They switch hands a couple of times, which is pretty normal, right? For most brains, eyes closed. And in the light on scenario, theta dominates basically.
Wow.
This is evidence, right? This is clear. You've just witnessed this well live. So last but not least, in terms of
Now,
HRV
can you, Alex,
frequencies,
can you just go back to that other slide? Now,
yes.
seeing this kind of results, you worked with a lot of different devices out there. How do you feel this kind of, we did it in a couple minutes with under the light. What kind of, have you seen this often, this kind of graph this way?
No, I have to say no. I've worked with a lot of photobiomodulation devices, mostly much lower power. So, I have to say to see these kind of results so consistently, observation after observation is indeed quite rare. In some cases we see slight theta increase. So theta increase is a typical one. So we're not surprised by that at all because, photobiomodulation recharges the brain cells, tricks it into rest and repair, and then you see a lot more theta as a consequence of that, as opposed to anything else. But I have to say this kind of difference is quite remarkable, and it's quite clear. You can see this is a prior recording, also from Tom's brain, and compare and contrast to one we just saw. This is pretty direct evidence to the shift of frequencies and the way the brains function under photobiomodulation. So no, I would say no. This is quite stark.
Well, what I found fascinating is when you were able to last week, some of the employees, and we didn't have the time to do it today to do the other two, but to be able to see um, different types of brain, and one has ADHD challenge, and one has challenge with seizures. And both of them were able to see an improvement as well. That was really cool. So this is a way, as I see it, to measure real time. And with Alex's, I got to say, Alex's stuff is absolutely phenomenal here because he can be doing this almost full time, looking at, well, he can have a whole army of people that have been taught under him, but you could in Toronto, out of Toronto, you could analyze anybody's brain and see what it looks like and see proof if we had an Alzheimer's or we had somebody with dementia or somebody with autism or somebody with some kind of traumatic brain injury. We might be able, very likely, not, first of all, the equipment would allow him to see the brain waves directly, which is huge because he doesn't have to be at the site to put all his brain power that he has in understanding this to work. So I think this is phenomenal, your program, what you've got and what you've set up. And it really wasn't too difficult for me to set up. So thank you, Alex, for how many years have you poured into getting this to look like this?
So this is 5 years and going, right?
Yeah, and we're using technology that's state of the art. When we can do four channels and a heart rate monitor, on the thing. This is to tie the technologies together and allow you to analyze is just over the top. This is going to cause brand new activity out there that nobody's seen. Like we'll be able to monitor and also see the brain patterns not only change, but over time you could then see the progress of somebody over the course of a month or 2 months or 3 months, right, Alex?
Absolutely. So just some context there to what you're saying. Divergence currently has somewhere around 150 clinics working with some 5,000 clients out there all over the world, mostly remotely in the exact same fashion that we were just doing it. So we've been able to enable clinics to scale outside of the restraint of their four walls. So no longer do you have to have somebody to come into your clinic to do a brain map or measurement or even training based on brain waves. You can send the
Fantastic.
device anywhere. It's a small little box. Drop ship it, and when they're done, they can ship it back to you. It completely changes the game and the scale of using evidence-driven processes and methodologies to help people. So we're pretty proud of that. Yeah.
The combination of the two, fantastic. And then, you developed the app to make it really, really simple to figure out. I highly recommend Alex's stuff. So continue, Alex. You're just about done here, and we might have a few questions here. Oh, is it FDA? Okay, so is it FDA approved? The question quickly came up just now.
Yeah, so the dry wireless devices are not FDA approved yet. They're health and wellness in classification because getting FDA approved costs a lot of money and it's a very long, lengthy process. Is the 19 channel devices, some of our contemporaries have our FDA approved. They're usually, sort of like $5,000 to $10,000 level, whereas one of these is about a few $100s. Um, so, they can be FDA approved. So these are passive monitoring devices. They don't interfere with your physiology, unlike the light itself. We're not putting anything into your brain. We're just measuring what's coming out of it. So it's completely passive. There's no sort of interference. There's no mechanism of action here. It's a measurement device, much like your Fitbit or your Apple Watch that sits on your wrist, kind of reads what comes out of your body. So
Yeah, I'll just give one quick sample here is the one group. What is the type of band that the Whoop is it or Hoop or what is it that people wear?
yeah, so Whoop is one of the bigger brands, right? So we've got Aura in terms of rings. So they all collect kind of,
Yeah,
electrical impulses. In this case, is something called PPG. Basically allows you to approximate heart rate
yeah.
from
So
that.
it's not anywhere as good as what we're doing here right now. But the thing about it was, one of the police forces, they have all their members, all of their police officers have one of the bands around their wrist, and so they've been monitoring their heart for the past year, and they've got people with severe sleep deprivation that they can see that they have really hard troubles with thinking because they've had super stress on the job or PTSD from seeing some kind of accident or some kind of murder scene or shooting a gun or whatever happens in in their line of work. And so a lot of them are having trouble sleeping and having a good sleep. Well, they got the helmet and they've been running their tests and they're having significant improvement on their sleep patterns and they just come in twice when they go in for their shift, they get a light treatment. When they leave for their shift, they get a light treatment. And those police officers have improved their sleep habits and it's all being measured. So all of this stuff will be data driven, and we'll have it. So this is fantastic. So I'm sorry, I interrupted you there. Continue, Alex. I know you got to go right away. So
I'm good. Actually, this is the last slide. So again, this is the heart rate variability. You can see sort of the natural switch between parasympathetic to baroflex. So these are pretty evenly distributed parasympathetic, baroflex, and sympathetic, whereas in the active phase, in your last sample, your cardiovascular system or autonomic nervous system is pretty much dominated by baroflex here, and most of the duration. So that's interesting to see. So I do wanted to address a few questions that I'm
Go for it.
seeing.
Go for it. Yeah.
Coming from the channel, they're all very good questions just
So
before I go here. So this
usually I
first
just give
question,
off the first name, and so go ahead.
sure. So there's a question from uh, Tamara about how might this mapping help regulate effectiveness of psychiatric drugs? That's a great question. So, well, effectiveness is a very complex kind of compound term that could be measured in many different ways. One of which is what does it actually do into your brain, and another is how does this make you feel? Obviously, one is somewhat affective, the other is more quantitative, right? So, what we see a lot is psychiatrists increasingly use EEG or QEEG guided assessments in order to ascertain that there are actual network related changes, post intervention, whether that is RTMS, PBM, or more pharmacological intervention via the form of drugs. They can measure brain patterns such as what you've seen just now in terms of understanding is there actual longitudinal changes, pre and post intervention, and if so, how long does it hang around? So it's another dimension of data that we can add, on top of the purely narrative data, such as, within the brain, see what psych meds are having beneficial or determined effect. Yeah, so you can sort of see that, again, the brain network changes are quite visible when you measure it with, let's say, 8 or 19 channel EEG. Typically, the medical standard is 19 channel and or above. So the FDA approved devices are typically 19 channel. You can see how, sort of the meds are changing the brain connectivity. So in terms of having beneficial or detrimental effect, that is to be interpreted by a skilled neurophysiologist. So different metrics can mean different things. For increased coherence, decreased alpha theta, those are very good sort of things to see. There are many different metrics like this where a trained neurophysiologist will be able to interpret and classify as either harmful or beneficial. Right. So
Right.
hopefully
Right.
that answers the question.
So
So moving on.
when doing a transcranial PBM session, does HRV improve during the session, and how long does the effect last once the session is over?
Yeah, that's a great question. Improve is a very interesting way of looking at it. So again, when we look at HRV, instead of just looking at the raw sort of variability, which is root mean square standard deviation of heartbeat, we also look at how it's distributed. So typically, to improve fitness, we want to maximize or optimize around what's called resonant frequency, which is different for everybody, but by and large, they're hanging around at the low frequency spectrum, right? So we do see a lot of increase, as we saw just now, in and around the low frequency range of the HRV, right? So I would say yes. How long does this session effect last once the session is over? That varies. I think, so
Don't move that.
yeah, that varies, depends on how long it is, how strong it is, and how sensitive does the person's system react to the stimulus, right? So
Okay.
that's hard to see.
One real quick question I need to answer is Daniela is asking, can the handheld light shrink or eliminate issues like fibroids or endometriosis? The answer is yes, and we've been able to see that. So Tamara's asking, um, okay, so yeah, I mean, within the brain, you would be able to see if the psychiatric brain meds are helping or being beneficial or detrimental. Probably, right?
Yeah, I've already answered that one.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, Hazel's asking, thank you for a very helpful presentation. How can sleep apnea be improved with this technology? That's another discussion for another day. I know Alex is tight on time, so it is possible to help with sleep apnea. Any ideas on your side, if before I just pass it along to the next question?
I'm not a sleep expert, so
Okay.
I will refrain from answering that one.
All right. Okay. I just didn't know if you had any case, but you're going to learn more and more with a helmet, what it can do, how it can have an effect on not only the heart, but the rest of the body. So no problem there. We'll continue on with the next question here. Um, okay. So things. Um, Donna's asking, can everyone attending see the chat? Only the host? Yeah, we only have the hosts and panelists because we don't like sometimes people like to take over the chats area, and we don't like that. So we want to get the questions answered. So that's why we do that, Donna. Um, okay, so FAA guy. Oh, yeah, just mention about Rebecca. How do you know Rebecca, Alex?
So I've met Rebecca years ago, actually, at my first ISNR, as International Society of Neuroregulation. For those who don't know, it's sort of the authority conference for stuff that like is related to neurophysiology, neurofeedback, neuroassessment, biomodulation. So she was one of the first people to say hello to me, and became fast friends. Just really nice person and knows a lot about EEG. So yeah, that's how I know her. So we've been friends since I think 2021. I think yeah,
Yeah,
five
and
years
we're going to
ago
be
now.
Alex, myself, and Rebecca are going to be working closer to get some stuff done together. So this is going to be a lot of fun. So if you enjoyed last week's podcast, those that need to look back at last week, you can see it. There's a thank you here from Bridget. And head brain stays cool with the helmet. Yes, relatively. There's some warmth to it for sure, especially some extra warmth when we're talking the red itself. I didn't even use the red, but we've been doing some great stuff, seeing some great stuff there. Okay. Yep. You got to run.
Okay, I gotta go. It's
All
been a
right.
pleasure. Thank you for having
I'll
me
tell you what, I'll
again.
continue
Yeah,
on for a few more minutes answering a few more questions. Alex, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you're doing here
it's a
and
pleasure, Tom.
the impact that you're going to have on a lot of people by this technology. So thank you for what you're doing.
My
And
pleasure.
thank
Thanks
you
for
for
having
being
me.
on tonight.
Take care. Bye.
Okay, I'll answer a few more questions and then we got to call it quits here. Lots throwing forward here. We've got some thank yous. Yeah, so thank you for everybody joining us. Bodwin saying, yeah, I think it's thank you for organizing this. Hi, Tom. What frequency are you using in the NIR? We have two helmets. We have the 660 and the 810 as one helmet. That's a regular helmet. And then we have the super helmet, which is 660, 1050 nanometer. And anyways, that so we have two different models of helmets, and a person can help with that. There's okay. My this is from Esther. Esther, I think you were on WDCX today. And anyways, my husband has had restless leg syndrome for over 2 years. His main issue is lack of sleep. This information seems to help answer some of our concerns. Thank you. Yes, the number of people that have commented to me that they've had the best sleep that they've had in a very long time when they first start using the helmet and even ongoing. One of my good friends, he has the helmet and he loaned it to somebody else. And he says, Tom, he says, I'm not dreaming as much. I'm not getting, I'm waking up sooner. All kinds of things that he says, I'm definitely not getting as restful a sleep and I don't fire as well during the day. I noticed how much more I could fire. And so he says, I tell you, I'm going to get the helmet back from my friend. He's got to go buy one. So, anyways, uh, and not only that, he noticed how it had an impression on his tinnitus that's ringing in the ear. So, anyways, he had severe ringing in his ears and or one ear, and he used the helmet and really reduced the symptoms of that. And now he lent this helmet out, and he says, "I can hardly wait to get it back because that ringing is starting to drive me crazy again." So, anyways, helmet has been very effective in his situation. Now, we can't guarantee anything. I'm not a medical doctor. I can't prescribe anything. I can't, it's just here's what we've found with people using this, and it can help a lot of people. So we're going to have to call it quits very, very quickly here, but just last minute questions are rolling in. He asked about frequency or wavelength. So 660, 810 is one helmet, 810, 10, or 660, 1050. And also, right now, you can, if somebody really wants to get into the pulsing the helmet, it's possible, but you really need to know what you're doing. We're getting good results with the 660 810, but also with the 660 1050, and there's some possibility that the 1050 is making more of an effect by penetrating a little bit deeper. Does the question here from Judy, does the mini canopy do this work instead of the helmet? Absolutely. Just as you just put the mini canopy on one side of your head, one mini canopy on the other side, kind of like this, okay? And then you could put one towards the top back, one angle towards the top back. So you can do that with the mini canopy. Also, you could do that with the palm light. So yeah, you can do the palm light on the different parts of the brain that way as well. It just takes longer. That's all. I mean, the helmet is beautiful because it does the whole brain at once. So Yvonne is asking, could I get similar results with the handheld 1050? Yes, we've been able to help people with different types of cognitive issues with the 1050, helping their sleep pattern, doing even reducing or eliminating migraines. So that's been something. Judy is asking how often to use the mini canopy and the super pump since I don't have the helmet. I would use, if you have some kind of issue out there, if people have an issue and you want to move it along faster, you might want to do it 2 or 3 times a day. There's no harm in doing that. And the time, it depends on the type of unit you have as to how long that might be. But basically, we're trying to do, if you're not using the helmet, it'll take longer. The helmet is 4 minutes, but if you do it with a mini canopy, you could do 1 minute and 3 minutes of one side, 1 minute, 3 minutes on the other side, and 1 minute, 3 minutes on the other. Dwayne is asking, do you have any clients who have purchased units north of Toronto? Not yet. I don't know of when you say clients. We have people that have purchased units that we have, but as far as clinics, there's a few in Toronto, and even Scarborough, and downtown Toronto, and we got in Oakville, and we got in Elmer, on so and then there's a whole bunch of them all over the place. But you're asking about Toronto, so I tried to give you an idea there. So we're going to wrap it up. I want to thank everybody for joining us, and I want to suggest as well, please go to our YouTube channel, SunPower LED. You can find it fairly easily, and once you get to SunPower LED, there's a bunch of shorts. If you're new with us, watch the shorts. They're only like 1 minute long. There's a number of those. Our next webinar will be Tuesday of next week, the 20th. And next week, we will have Dr. Joseph Maroon, and he's a neurosurgeon, and he's seen some beautiful stuff with using the using the palm light on his body for certain things, as well as he's had beautiful results. Like he said, my gosh, is it just an anomaly or placebo effect? But man, did I ever sleep. And that's what happened in his situation. So we'll be bringing him on next week, Tuesday, and prepare for an absolutely excellent meeting, podcast, and his thing with um, being a neurosurgeon and liking our unit and seeing what it can do and realizing that every clinic, every hospital should have our technology. But they're pretty slow to adapt. So rather than wait for a hospital, why don't you go to our YouTube, sorry, not YouTube channel. Oh, by the way, when you go to the YouTube channel, please like and subscribe. Very, very important to us. It helps us get the numbers out, so more people will end up with their algorithms. More people will be prompted saying, "Hey, check out SunPower LED." So you'll be doing us a great favor if you go to our YouTube channel as well. Go to our website, and right now we are still offering a special 10% discount on all our equipment. So please go there, and yeah, great stuff that you're able to join us today, and love to see you all next week. So please join us. And again, I just wish everyone God's richest blessings on your life. And I hope you can not only help heal yourself, and if you have some issues, but all those that are around you. So have a great week and hope everything goes well, that we can see you next week, Tuesday. All the best. Bye for now.